Hola, estudiantes. We're going to talk about the present tense of ER and IR verbs today. Make sure that you have your note guide with you, your textbook, and a pencil or pen. Well, let's talk about the present tense. We've already talked about how to conjugate AR verbs in the present tense. And the present tense shows an action that is happening now. That's why it's called the present. The Spanish present tense verb, hablo, can be expressed in English three different ways. So if you say hablo, you're saying I speak, I am speaking, or I do speak. So remember, we have conjugated this from the verb hablar, which is an AR verb, and we know yo is our subject because we've taken the AR off and added O to the end. Okay, you've already learned how to conjugate AR verbs. Another word for verbs is infinitives, as long as it ends in AR, ER, or IR. So, there are three types. Here are some examples of each. Okay, so we have AR verbs, ER verbs, and IR verbs. So, make sure that you fill out part A of your note guide, where it asks you what Spanish infinitives end in. There are three, AR, ER, and IR. So here are some examples, and make sure you're filling in part B of your note guide where it asks you to list the different types below. You can list the same ones I have here. So an example of an AR verb is hablar, an example of an ER verb is comer, and an example of an IR verb is escribir. Escuchar, leer, and asistir, descansar, vender, and compartir. So let's go back up and talk about what they mean. So if you remember, hablar means to talk or to speak. Escuchar means to listen. And descansar means to rest. Okay, so let's look at our ER examples. We know comer is to eat, leer is to read, and vender is to sell. Okay, now we have some over here on the escribir side, or sorry, on the IR side. Escribir means to write, asistir means to attend, and compartir means to share. So pause the video and make sure that you have part B filled out before you move on. Okay, so let's review conjugating AR verbs before we talk about ER and IR. Okay? To conjugate a verb ending in AR, follow these steps. Drop the verb infinitive. Start with the verb infinitive, whatever that may be. Hablar, escuchar, descansar. Drop the AR from the end. Keep everything else there and add the following endings. O, as, a, amos, an. So pause the video and fill out part C of your note guide where it asks what three steps you do to conjugate a verb in the present tense. Okay, now you're going to do the same thing with an A or an ER verb as you do with an IR verb. The only difference is that you're going to drop the ER instead of the AR, and we add different endings, but you'll notice they're very similar. Okay, so instead of having an A in them, you'll notice they have an E. So the yo form is the same. Okay, we'll drop the ER and add O, but notice instead of AS, we have ES for the to form. El, ella, usted will end in E instead of A. Nosotros will end in EMOS instead of AMOS, and ellos, ellas, ustedes will end in EN instead of AN. So it's exactly the same. You're just going to substitute out the A for an E to conjugate an ER verb. Okay, so let's conjugate the verb comer, which we know means to eat. So we want to change it. We want to conjugate it and say things like I eat, I am eating, or I do eat. You eat, you are eating, or you do eat. So as we go through the chart here on this slide, make sure that you fill in part D of comer as we go through. Okay, so if we drop the ER and add O, we have como. If we drop the ER and add ES, we have comes. Okay, el, ella, usted is come. Nosotros is comemos. And ellos, ellas, ustedes is comen. Please fill in the chart for part D. Pause the video. Now, IR verbs are very similar to ER verbs, but there's a slight difference, okay? So again, you start with the infinitive of the verb, whatever it may be. You drop the IR this time, because that's what kind of verb it is, and you add the following endings. Now, if you compare these endings to the chart in part D of your note guide where you conjugated comer, you'll notice that they're all the same except the nosotros. So, for the yo form, you drop the IR at O. To form, drop the IR at ES. LA usted, drop the IR, add E. But notice for nosotros, instead of dropping the IR and adding EMOS, we add IMOS. So that's really the only difference between the ER and the IR verb. So don't forget, the nosotros forms of ER and IR verbs are going to be different, okay? Ellos, ellas, ustedes, notice you drop the IR and add EN. So let's conjugate the verb escribir, to write. If you notice, part E of your note guide asks you to conjugate the verb escribir. So I'm going to have you pause the video at this time and fill in the chart with the forms of escribir. Okay, so if you want to say I write, escribo. You write, escribes. She writes, escribe. We write, escribimos. Or they write, escriben. Okay, now notice there's a little bit more on the back of your note guide, so flip that over and let's continue on. All right, practiquemos. It says conjugate the following verbs in the present tense, okay? We have the yo form, we have the verb beber, and we need to conjugate. So we're going to drop ER and add O. So yo bebo café is I drink coffee. Dos, we have nosotros and we have vender. We're going to drop the ER and add EMOS. So nosotros vendemos mucho means we sell a lot. Okay, for tres, our subject is Juan, so it's like saying he. Compartir is our IR verb, so we're going to drop the IR, and we're going to add E. So Juan comparte conmigo means that Juan shares with me. Cuatro, we have yo and we have escribir. So we want to drop the IR and add O. Yo escribo un correo electrónico. I write an email. Or I am writing an email, or I do write an email. Remember, there are multiple meanings. Look at cinco. We have tu, we have leer. We want to drop the ER. We leave the LE in the beginning, so don't freak out because it's got two vowels there. Okay? So if you drop the ER, you have LE, and you want to add ES. So lees, L-E-E-S. Okay? Look at seis. We have usted, and we have aprender. We want to drop the ER and add E. So, usted aprende el español means you learn Spanish. Okay, now if you have additional questions, you're still not quite sure, see the notes provided on page 150 of your textbook. And at this time, since we've finished the flipped video, I want you to finish the practice section, part F, on the back side of your note guide. Okay,